foundation of life, a vibrant ecosystem teeming with organisms upon which humanity has built their success. Agronomists know this, farmers know this, and yet this knowledge seems to be forgotten here, in the barren fields of Minnesota's corn farms. Monocultures of corn and soybean rip the soil clean of organic matter and nutrients, demanding increasing amounts of fertilizer and pesticides to maintain yields. But farms like this aren't outliers. They're commonplace worldwide. Declining soil health is one of the many alarm bells signaling that our planet is on the brink of ecological collapse. And behind it all lies capitalism. Under capitalism, human labor transforms nature extensively in the pursuit of profit and capital accumulation. This relentless quest of transforming nature into marketable goods disrupts the cycle of production and reproduction in nature, or in other words, nature's metabolism. As Marx writes in the first volume of Capital, all progress in capitalist agriculture is a progress in the art not only of robbing the worker, but of robbing the soil. So the degradation of soil health across the world isn't a symptom of human nature. It's instead driven by the rampant hunger of capitalism. Throughout history, there has always been a metabolic interaction between humans and their natural environments. Whether through gathering or cultivation, we have worked the land to sustain ourselves. Up until the capitalist mode of production, however, that which we extracted has been replenished, whether through manure, food scraps, or clothing made from natural materials. Consequently, ecosystems, while certainly disturbed, were never shattered. However, capitalist production smashed this metabolic cycle. It privatized common land, forcing peasants from farms into the city. Survival was no longer based on how well you tended to the land and grew food, but instead how big your wages were. Food was thus grown in the countryside and sold and shipped via markets to sustain growing urban populations now working under a capitalist wage labor system. In this process, capitalist production prevents the return of the soil of its constituent elements consumed by man in the form of food and clothing. Hence, it hinders the operation of the eternal natural condition for the lasting fertility of the soil. In essence, the fundamental workings of capitalism directly contradict the regenerative processes of nature. This is what eco-socialist scholar John Bellamy Foster calls the metabolic rift. Capitalist production continuously extracts minerals, nutrients, and organic matter from the earth.
This is why I say hemp paradise. This is why I say people need to grow locally. If everybody grows their own food, if every neighborhood, every community has their own food source as opposed to food getting shipped and mass produced, it'll be healthier for the people. It'll be healthier for the earth. And then in between crops, in between grows, grow hemp. Growing hemp will sequester the carbon. It will lower those carbon emissions. It replenishes the soil. And those people who are growing the hemp can then take that hemp, make textiles out of it, or sell it to a company that is making textiles out of it.
Forming them into commodities for profit, and never completes the cycle by returning those extracted materials to the soil. This perpetual extraction without replenishment represents one of the fundamental contradictions of capitalism, and is part of the reason why we're experiencing climate chaos.
We'll be saving trees. Those trees can stay there. That takes a lot longer to grow, right? Instead, we're using hemp. We're using less cotton, which uses up more water. Instead, we're making things out of hemp. It's better for the environment, better for the soil, better for the people. And it is a way, in conjunction with a lot of other ideas, to get things back on track and going in the right direction for the planet and for humanity.
Right now. So we need a new...
Sorry to keep pausing, but this video is giving me life. I had a moment where shit just seemed hopeless and crazy. But what it is taking care of the mind, being around people who actually see and get it, being careful of what I watch, what I listen to, what I take in, because things at some point just seem hopeless. Like nobody is listening, nobody is paying attention, nobody is doing anything. And then I go and I see a video like this, which means people are doing stuff. People are thinking about this. People are planning and strategizing and just trying to get the word out there to the masses to get on board with it. Because this ain't some big thing like a big corporation that just mass produce shit and then you just have no choice but to accept it. It's not capitalism. And this video is giving me new life right now. Okay, back to it.
Economic system, one that prioritizes the well-being of humanity and nature over the accumulation of profits and capital. And that system is eco-socialism. In 2020, the world needs the well-being of humanity, and scholar John Bellamy Foster calls the metabolic rift. Capitalist production continuously extracts minerals, nutrients, and organic matter from the earth, transforming them into commodities for profit, and never completes the cycle by returning those extracted materials to the soil. This perpetual...
I'm sorry. Hemp is totally biodegradable. It goes straight back to the earth. You need less chemicals to turn it into paper than you do with wood to make it soft enough and turn it into paper. You can use hemp oil, put hemp oil straight in your gas engines. As a matter of fact, that is exactly what the fuck I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it on camera and I'm going to show how you can put hemp oil in your gas engine without any additives, any alterations to the oil. And it's putting out less carbon. It's lubricating your parts, it's fueling your engine, and it's putting less carbon out into the world. It's better. It's so much better than gas. That is exactly. I'm going to go and I'm going to buy some straight hemp oil. I'm going to put it in my engine, and I'm going to show you how it runs. Simple shit like that. Like it can be done. We don't have to wait for the masses to make small changes, and we don't have to completely go without certain luxuries. Like it's great to say give up, the vehicles that's putting out all of these emissions out there and just ride a bike or whatever. That's cool, but in the wintertime with snow on the ground, I'm not trying to ride a bike. Sorry to say. I love the planet. I love humanity in general, but I'm not trying to ride a bike through the snow. Okay? I still want to be able to get in my car and go to where I gotta go, knowing that I'm not fucking the planet up. So we gonna do this hemp thing, and you'll see live experiment whether or not it works or whether or not I fuck my car up, and really we do need something to be like produced by some experts or something. Hemp Paradise Farms. That's where it's at. Let's get this definition.
Extraction without replenishment represents one of the fundamental contradictions of capitalism and is part of the reason why we're experiencing climate chaos right now. So we need a new economic system, one that prioritizes the well-being of humanity and nature over the accumulation of profits and capital. And that system is eco-socialism. In 2020, the world needed to cut emissions by 7.6% every year in order to stay below 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming. That same year, the COVID-19 pandemic hit. State actors mobilized massive plans to halt the spread of disease, which also happened to grind the economy to a halt. And yet global emissions only fell by 5.4%, only to then quickly rebound as production kicked into high gear a year later. The pandemic lays bare the destruction and incompetence of our global capitalist economy. It reveals that even extreme austerity and forced consumption cuts under capitalism will never be enough to stave off the worst of climate chaos. Capitalism cannot stop the climate crisis. It cannot dismantle the fossil fuel industry, nor can it halt the sixth mass extinction. It can't do these things because it is the core driver of all of these crises.
Right.
But as much as we can recognize the growing rift between human and nature born out of capitalism, critiquing the present is not enough. We must envision a beautiful and realistic future, one that excites us and helps fuel the fire of transition. As environmental historian and author of Half-Earth Socialism, Troy Vitesse argues,
that having this utopia, this end goal, is very useful because that actually glues together your coalition. That actually binds you together.
Eco-socialism might just offer that powerful vision that glues us all together. It calls for a worker and peasant-led revolution that rips the ownership of production away from the elite and puts decision-making power into the hands of the masses. Unlike capitalism, which prioritizes decisions based on the endless creation of products that sell for more profit, eco-socialism advocates for an economy that makes decisions based on the well-being of all people and the planet. But what makes eco-socialism ecological? Most of these ideas of worker-led planning is well within the bounds of many socialist goals and visions. Admittedly, as Victor Wallace notes,
it's even redundant to put the eco prefix onto it because socialism implies that you make decisions on the basis of what's in the interest of people, and you can't legislate in the interest of people without taking into account the environment.
So while socialist goals often align with ecological concerns, eco-socialism specifically emphasizes a democratically planned economy based on social and ecological constraints. Planning is crucial not only for the ethical redistribution of wealth and knowledge sharing, but also for living harmoniously within our natural environments. History, though, teaches us that there are many pitfalls in the planning process, especially when it comes to environmental concerns. Just because you are striving for socialism, like in the case of the Soviet Union, doesn't necessarily mean that you will achieve ecological sustainability. And if you're interested in learning more about Soviet planning, I've uploaded a whole companion video to this one on Nebula, examining the environmental faults and successes of Soviet planning. These past and present examples of the various forms of socialism show us that ecology, whether species extinction or climate change or ocean acidification, all need to be foregrounded in the planning process if we are to avoid ecological destruction. If left out of the picture, socialist planning could very well drive us down the path of heavy industrial fossil fuel use. So ecological planning is essential, because capitalism, with its market-driven anarchy, fails to account for ecological sustainability in any meaningful way.
Capitalism has already failed. As in, capitalism is not going to get us out of this mess. We've been talking about climate change and let alone other environmental crises for more than 3 decades, and things have gotten much worse.
So we know that capitalism has ripped the natural world apart and has failed to mend it back together. An eco-socialist planned economy, then, is a necessary intervention if we are to truly heal the rift between human economies and the natural world. But what exactly do those eco-socialist futures look like? Imagine a world where you don't feel forced to go to your job just to put food on the table, where climate collapse isn't driving every global disaster. A world where decisions about what products get made, what public goods are free and accessible, are carried out by everyday people, not by CEOs and board members. A world where community and chosen family are just a bike ride, a high-speed train, or a quick walk away. Living under capitalism, it's easy to feel like these visions are unrealistic or even utopian. We know that capitalism isn't working for us and for the planet, but it's hard to imagine an alternative. We're caught between understanding the destructive logic of capitalism and struggling to engage with viable alternatives. Perhaps that's part of capitalism's plan. As author and educator Ashley C. Ford writes, the goal of oppressors is to limit your imagination about what is possible without them, so you might never imagine more for yourself in the world you live in. This is why we need vibrant visions and debates, not just about the destruction of capitalism, not just about how we get to an ecological zero-carbon world, but also about what that world looks like when we get there. Drew Pendergrass and Troy Battese's book, Half-Earth Socialism, is an excellent example of envisioning a socialist ecological future, addressing the sixth mass extinction, the threat of global pandemics, and the climate crisis. Half-Earth Socialism calls for a socialist planned economy that hinges on the key parameters of land preservation, minimizing emissions, and a good life for all, rather than what markets normally plan around, monetary costs and profits. More concretely, Battese and Pendergrass call for a half-earth socialism that uses linear programming methods to set broad-scale goals like veganism, energy quotas, and forest rewilding and stewardship under indigenous control. Pendergrass notes,
we can imagine feasible ways to use simple algorithms to plan plausible ways of organizing society, and then debate about what those plans look like and on various levels. So we kind of imagine a little federalism where we set broad, course goals at a large level, and then figure out in detail what that looks like as you go towards the more local level.
In the context of climate change, socialist planning is crucial because it lets us understand exactly what we need to do at all levels. As Vitesse argues,
okay, so one's vegan or someone has a Tesla, someone doesn't fly, they're great, but what is actually necessary? And I think when you're in a market, this is super opaque. One really has no idea.
He goes on to add that with a planning model,
then you begin to think, okay, like how much energy can we use as a society, or where are we getting that energy from? How much land are we using with animal agriculture? How much of that land could be rewilded? You begin to see these things in their totality, which is difficult to do or impossible to do under capitalism.
The reality is that any ecological socialist society will have trade-offs. To dramatically downscale the economy, to preserve half of the world's ecosystems in a decolonial way, while also redistributing wealth and energy to everyone in the world, countries, and especially the rich in the imperial core, will certainly have to cut down on production and consumption. In the last chapter of their book, Vitesse and Pendergrass reveal what this might look like through the idea of the Goss plan, an algorithmic planning tool that reveals the trade-offs that must be made in order to reach an ecological sound society. Drawing on the work of prior planning theorists and the power and capacity of new planning and modeling systems like climate models, the authors envision a central planning tool called Goss plan. Using linear programming algorithms, which are already used throughout a lot of the business world, Gosplant would spit out broad plans depending on which parameters are emphasized. For example, if we very simplistically input that we want to cut emissions by 7.6% every year, rewild 25% more land while maintaining a global good life, all by 2030, the Gosplant might spit out a variety of plans ranging from more lenient energy quotas but faster uptake of vegetarian or vegan production and consumption. Or perhaps it might spit out a plan with more aggressive rewilding and afforestation instead, or a more rapid increase in renewable production. Essentially, it would mean thousands of planners and scientists would plug a massive amount of data into Gosplant and model course blueprints 5, 10, or even 25 years into the future, projecting what it would look like to cut emissions, rewild half the planet, and redistribute wealth at different speeds. And crucially, those broad plans would be disseminated, debated, and transformed as they pass through global, national, and local levels. In the last chapter of the book, we get a brief glimpse of that future as fictional local Massachusetts planner Edith explains.
The folks down in Havana have made a few different plans for the next year, assuming different energy quotas, ensuring in each plan that nature is always respected and no one is left behind. Plan 5F is the most austere, keeping consumption at about 750 watts per person, which includes all of the industrial production and social services required to keep society running. For us, she continued, Plan 5F means we can let a lot of pasture return to wilderness rather than planting more of those terrible biofuel plantations.
Throughout the chapter, the characters debate the various plans constantly. Because for eco-socialist planning to succeed, it must be in constant motion. It must be intensely transparent, understandable, accessible, and subject to debate. Plans must come from everyone, be formulated and run through modeling tools like the fictional Gosplant, and then sent back to the masses in an endless cycle of construction and exploration. But Pendergrass and Vitesse are just two thinkers in a vast world of eco-socialist ideas. There are other visions, like those of Max Isle, wherein greenbelts surround all cities as popular planning converts sprawling suburbs into farm swards. High-speed trains link bigger cities to smaller ones to capillary lines, leading to outlying hamlets. Isle's world prioritizes anti-imperialism and state sovereignty in the periphery. Ultimately, as Max Isle writes, eco-socialism aspires to egalitarian redistribution, public ownership of the means of production, respectful, modest, and humane management of the human interaction with non-human nature, and decommodification of social life globally, not merely locally. And it aspires to eliminate capitalism not merely locally, but globally. And it is explicitly anti-imperialist and pro-third world state sovereignty.
We need a solution that attacks the problem at the root, first of all, and that also does not restrict itself to looking at a reconstruction of the United States and Europe, but also looks towards the global south, towards Latin America, towards Africa, towards Asia.
Isle's vision seeks to mend the metabolic rift of capitalism by shrinking the distance between urban production and rural land, ending a system of extraction and embracing one of replenishment. Ideas that even Karl Marx was writing about a century and a half before. Marx writes that it's not enough to just liberate the worker. For a truly just and liberated society of replenishment. Ideas that even...
This is a great video. Go to that page and watch the rest of it. That is absolutely why hemp farming is important in conjunction with the rest of the stuff. Hemp cleans up the soil much faster than any other plant. It cleans the air faster than any other plant. The materials, once you grow it, is not just to be thrown away. You can use it to create other things out of it. Fuel, clothes, paper, plastics, oil. Hempcrete, fiberglass is a healthy alternative for pet bedding, even pet food. You can feed your chickens and the other animals on your farm with it. Alright, the next part of this video, I'm going to come back with the hemp oil. And it's going to be maybe me purchasing the hemp oil. Definitely me putting the hemp oil in the car so you can see it, see what it is. See me crack open the bottle, put it in the car, hop in the car and run and see what it does. I'm looking for hemp oil.
Why? Thank you. How's she doing? How's she doing?
Is that the only one?
Oh. That is so good. Thank you. Okay.
We gotta work on that price.
My mom go give me some. I don't know. See, I know once my time is up. My time is up.
Okay, so because I don't want to wait a week to put this footage together, I ended up getting this hemp oil because you get more in it for less. The ingredients is still just hemp oil, hemp seed oil. Let me get out the light. One ingredient, so nothing extra added, no seasonings or nothing like that. My tank is like 1/8 away from being full. So we're going to let that run down. And then we're going to put the hemp oil in it and do that experiment.